Joining me right now is former U.S. Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker. And Matt, it is good to see you this morning. What a day yesterday.
Hi, Maria.
They asked him to come testify, but I don't think they really cared about what he was saying. We didn't hear from him. They just kept talking over him. Your reaction?
Well, this is very similar to my experience over a year ago where I went up in front of the same committee. And, you know, it really was a missed opportunity then and a missed opportunity yesterday to solve some of these problems. The violent crime is up in our major cities, and this was a chance for the Judiciary Committee in the House, which has oversight of the Justice Department, to work with the Attorney General to solve some of these problems, to give additional resources, additional tools through legislation, and they completely missed that because they would rather grandstand and really make up a set of alternative facts that are just not consistent with what we are seeing in some of these cities.
Why? Just to go against the president and his Attorney General? Why? Why not actually solve problems?
Yeah, I think it is. It's an election year. It's hyper-partisan, and I think to some extent, you know, the narrative. If you think about the things that the Democrats think they're going to win on, many of them are inconsistent with what the American people want. One of this is the rising violent crime rate, and you saw all of these issues as when Barr was asked, he gave very simple, straightforward answers as to what the problem was and how to solve it, and they had no interest in hearing that. And whether it was questions about the Russian collusion fable that they continue to want to perpetuate and suggest that somehow, even though Barr and the Department of Justice recommendation was adopted by a completely independent judge who is no fan of the Department of Justice in the Roger Stone case, that somehow that Bill Barr had interfered in that case. It was a complete outrageous example of why Washington's broken, Congress gets nothing done for the American people, and why ultimately I think the American people need to demand that some of these problems get solved.
Dagan, jump in here.
I just want to push back on something that Philip said. He used the word conversation about yesterday. That's not what that was. It was a shriek fest. I'll just sit here and say, I'm reclaiming my time, my time, my time. It was the intellectual equivalent, what we saw from Democrats yesterday, of a petulant child eating toilet paper for attention. That's what the American people got out of that. There was one adult in Washington, and it was Bill Barr.
Yeah,
well,
that's
Dagan, and you
right.
saw,
and you know what
I think,
they refused to do. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think she's absolutely right, and I think you saw why Bill Barr is the Attorney General and why I was happy and proud to shake his hand and hand him the keys to the Department of Justice, because he is a serious, sober individual that is very smart, that knows the law, that knows the role of the Attorney General, and is restoring the rule of law. And he's mentioned that several times, and it's true. And you know, this is such an important position, and this is the right person for the right time.
Well, they're also trying to muddy the story. In other words, there's a specific situation happening in Portland where the anarchists are trying to destroy federal property, the courthouse, and there is a responsibility to protect that courthouse. That's why federal agents are there. Looking at the unrest across the cities is totally different. In fact, you've got federal agents leaving Seattle, for example, amid growing violence. The Trump administration is speaking with Portland officials about removing agents from that city as well. If the agents leave Portland, what happens, Matt? I mean, do they recognize what's going to take place? This is not a peaceful protest, what we're looking at right now, but they refuse to acknowledge it.
It's not, and we have had dozens of federal law enforcement officers injured, some of them permanently, in this attack on the federal courthouse. And somehow the Democrats yesterday did not seem to care about law enforcement officers being injured, nor about the risk of millions of dollars in property damage happening at a federal courthouse in one of our nation's cities. And so, you know, I think if this is their strategy to win an election this fall, I just think this is a sad day for America, because we should all rally around law enforcement and make sure that we protect our federal assets.
Yeah, Scott Martin, there are shootings that are up across year to date in Chicago. You live in Chicago. What is it like there? I mean, no wonder the cops are saying, look, we're going to pull out of the Democratic National Convention in Milwaukee. You're taking away the tools that we need. What are we doing?
Yeah, Marie, you can hear me. Matt, I'm worried about these cities, though, because if you look at Chicago and where we are dealing with things with respect to how Mayor Lightfoot is handling this, I mean, how far does this go when it comes to federal agents and the fact that they come to the cities and the mayors don't want them in here?
Well, it's a problem because when I was at the Department of Justice, both as Chief of Staff and as Acting Attorney General, we spent a lot of time trying to help the city of Chicago and the police force address this violent crime that is plaguing the city. And, we worked together collaboratively on task forces, especially with the ATF, to get some of these trigger pullers and these illegal guns off the streets. And if we wanted to send more resources and the mayor and the city council don't want them there, that does a disservice to the citizens who do want to end violence, because everyone should be entitled to have their children play in their front yards safely without a risk of a drive-by shooting or a stray bullet killing them. So, I mean, these mayors and city councils members in these big cities need to accept the federal help and let the federal government partner with local law enforcement to try to reduce violent crime.
Yeah, you said it. It's a sad day, Matt. Thank you so much. Matt Whitaker joining us after that incredible testimony yesterday.